Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you while you were home alone? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.
My friend pulled up in a stranger's car. She'd hitched a ride and was trying to escape her father, who had just busted her in the face with a wooden plank. I got her into the house, and we were hiding with the lights out when he showed up. He pulled into my front lawn in his truck, screaming for her to come out. He started banging on the windows and threatened to break them if she didn't come out. My parents were at the bar. First I called the police, then I called them. The town cop arrived about the same time as my parents, and all the adults stood outside talking for a minute before they came inside. The police officer said that my friend had to go with her dad and that she was a runaway. They told me that I was harboring a runaway. She went home with her dad, completely failed by the system. After that, we were not allowed to be friends anymore. Her father forbade it. I saw her in a store about 10 years ago, and she still wouldn't acknowledge me when I said hello to her. A middle-aged adult woman, still afraid of her father. This happened pretty recently. When I came back from home, I usually eat dinner by myself. On that evening, I was lazy and put a frozen pizza in the oven. I had lunch, left the dishes at my desk, and went to sleep because I had to wake up early the next day. I usually do not have to pee in the night, but for whatever reason that night I had to go. When I went to the toilet, I saw some light in my kitchen. I went there to check it out to find my oven was still running. It had been running for about 7 hours at this point, and you could feel the warmth in the kitchen. Luckily, nothing was inside to catch fire, so I turned it off and had a hard time going back to sleep. Was alone in the dark laying in my bed. I was absolutely home alone, and all of a sudden, I got this huge wave of fear inside me. I heard the bed springs on my bed screeching, as if someone was on the bed crawling toward me. I sat up and froze. It went quiet for a few seconds, then all of a sudden, something blew hot air in my left ear and neck. I sprinted out of the house. Camping alone, something pressed against my tent in the middle of the night. Still have no idea what it was, and I was tipsy, reading a dark fiction anthology, Never Whistle at Night, by the light of the dimmest lantern you've ever freaking seen. Just awful, man. I had to pee so bad, but you've got me fucked up if you think I'm gonna go outside after that. Super haunted house. Had several paranormal experiences. Old man died a month before we took the house. It was split into 2 segments. Grandparents lived in the other half and hated it. Always told us they wanted to leave, never told us why. I often asked to sleep with my mom in the living room. I assume it was because I was creeped out as well. Woke up one night to see a figure inspecting our family photos on a cabinet. Best way to explain it is that it looked like a grim reaper that just walked out of a swamp, mossy and gross. It wasn't sleep paralysis. I tried nudging my mom over and over, pinched myself and hid under the covers, etc. It walked off to go inspect other rooms and didn't come back. As for other events, we had frequent kitchen items crash and break in the middle of the night, light bulbs, plates, etc. During the Great California Earthquake, my mom and I witnessed her bike get thrown in front of the door erratically while we were trying to escape. I also swear that I once saw a floating glowing head past my bedroom, but I'm somewhat sure that one was just a nightmare. I was like 6 at the time. We moved out from the house for earthquake damages and talked about it when I was older, around 15. She knew the place was super haunted, but couldn't afford to leave. When I was 16, I was home alone one weekend, unaware that 2 burglars had nicked a ladder from our garage, placed it against my parents' balcony, and entered their bedroom. I was sitting in my bed watching YouTube with earbuds in. I heard a strange noise and took out the earbuds just to listen for a while. I didn't hear more and thought it was probably just house noises. I put the earbuds back in. About 30 seconds later, the door handle to my room was slowly pushed down. As the door opened, I saw the silhouettes of 2 men. Since it was dark in the hallway and the light was on in my room, I couldn't see them clearly. They rushed out the front door as soon as they saw me. Ironically, I had forgotten to lock the front door that particular night. They didn't steal anything, but it left me quite confused. I ignored my mom's advice to never walk alone as a woman, especially at night. One night back in 2014, after I had finished my shift around midnight, I had a craving for donuts. At the time, I was going through a pretty bad breakup. So, I decided since it was down the street, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to walk there, and besides, I could use a pick-me-up. As I reached Winchell's down the street from my house and carried my freshly made dozen donuts out their front door, I started heading back home. Well, that was stupid of me. Technically, the whole decision was stupid of me, but I was 21 years old, so bear with me a minute. As I was walking with my box of donuts, a dark-figured man appeared out of nowhere and started following me home. To put this into perspective, this was on a Thursday morning around 1 a.m., so literally no one was out in the city besides me that early morning, or so I thought. As I got about halfway to my home, I noticed he had closed the distance between us to about half of what it was before. He was now a good 20 feet away or so from me. Fumbling for my keys at this point, and fast walking straight down the middle of the street quicker than I was before, I was 5 feet away from my garage gate when he was no more than 10 feet away from me. As I jabbed my key into the garage gate, quickly unlocking it and praying he wouldn't jump me from behind, in the 20 seconds it took for me to unlock the knob, I heard the gate click, and I rushed inside, slamming the gate behind me and backing away at least 30 feet from the gate. At that point, the dark-figured man was stopped facing me, staring at me from across the street. As I backed away, keeping my eyes on him and getting into my apartment building, where it was secure, he remained there, silently just watching me, with his hands in his pockets of his jumper. When I got back upstairs to my studio, I quickly put the box of donuts down on the kitchen counter and crouched down by my window to see if the dark hooded figure was still there. To my relief, he had vanished. So, with him now gone and with no way to identify him to warn police in any way, I sat on my bed, grabbed a donut, thank God that nothing happened to me, had one prominent thought: I will never walk anywhere alone at night again. I was saved from a night that could have been much worse for me. That night was my scariest moment, at least the one I'm willing to share.
I mean, midnight donuts are great, but at what cost? I'm glad it worked out for you, but that was pretty scary. It sucks that you can't just walk down a street and get donuts at midnight, whether you're male, female, old, young. Not cool. Everybody deserves good late night donuts.
Paranormal. I heard someone knock on my door. It's a metal security door and hard to miss. And I heard my sister's voice say, "Open the door." She's done this in the past, but I was still alarmed because it was around 10 p.m. I went and opened my door, no one there. Texted her to stop looking around. She likes to scare me. She said she's at home and sent me a video of herself at home. Still can't explain that. Normal scary. Flat tire on my drive from LA to Tucson at 3 a.m. on some desolate highway, nearly pitch black. I don't know how to change a tire. Oof. I have a bad back, and it was a rental. A car rolled to a stop behind me, headlights on high. Thought for sure I was going to be murdered. It was a cop. Made my anxiety worse. He stayed until roadside assistance showed up. A very taut, stressful 3 hours. I had moved into my own place, first time living by myself. One night I'm watching TV and I hear a scraping noise from the kitchen, like something gently being pushed. I go to investigate, and there's nothing out of place or out of the ordinary. This happens 3 or 4 times. The kitchen is extremely small. I'm talking if 2 people were to stand in there, they would be shoulder to shoulder with barely any room to move. So I decided I'll stand behind the door, leave it ajar, and when I hear the scraping noise, I flip the light on and open the door at the same time and catch a glimpse of whatever's making the noise. So I'm stood still, waiting a few minutes. I hear the scraping. I can tell it's my trash bin that's being moved. I take a deep breath and simultaneously yank the door open and flip the light switch. In the 1.5 seconds it took for me to see that there was literally nothing there, all the electric in my house went out. Lights, sockets, all of it. The circuit breaker is in the cellar, the entrance to which is in the kitchen. I slam the door shut, grab my phone, grab a torch from the windowsill, sprint upstairs. I bar my bedroom door. I look out of my bedroom window. The streetlights are on and all my neighbors have power. After a few hours, I drift off to sleep. In the morning, I get up. The electric is still out. The night before, my logical brain guessed it was a rat making the noise. But as nothing had moved, and I didn't see anything when I yanked the door open, my vivid imagination decided it must be supernatural. When I wake up, logic, but always paranoia has taken over, and my only guess is I'm not alone in the house. I call the estate agent, whom I rent the house from. They say they'll send someone out in the afternoon. Over the next few hours, I periodically check the lights, the plug sockets, nothing, dead. The electrician arrives, he flips the light, and boom, the light comes on. Not only that, there's now clearly power going to my TV, and a few other appliances clearly are receiving power. I'm freaking out, and I swear to him it's been out all day since last night. He goes down to check the breaker. All is okay. Nothing wrong with it at all. Never experienced anything unusual in that house the entire time I lived there, and I have no logical explanation for what happened. Someone broke into my apartment with a weapon, essayed me, and strangled me to unconsciousness. Then I had PTSD, had no idea I did, and 2 years later my landlord illegally entered my apartment, different city, and that triggered my PTSD, which caused psychosis with persecutory auditory hallucinations for 2 years straight, with my landlord's voice being one of the 10 which plagued me daily. I was suffering from delusions and paranoia as well, so I became convinced that my landlord had hidden cameras in my apartment, that I was going to be murdered by him, that I was going to be arrested by the FBI, etc. I spent tons of money on security for my apartment and covered up every screw in my apartment, smashed the light bulbs, brought everything important with me everywhere I went, brought my laptop to the pharmacy. It was literally insane. I remember sitting under my desk, convinced I was going to be murdered that night and crying. I would sleep with a knife under my pillow and a hammer beside me. So that was definitely the scariest. The PTSD was definitely much worse than the original trauma, and I was alone through it all. I had a dude literally walk through my house. I don't live in a dangerous area, also I live in Texas. I don't own a gun, but why would you roll the dice in this state? My house isn't big, 2,000 square feet. It's a straight shot from my front door to my back door. I was working from home in my office. I typically kept my door closed because my dogs would look out of my office window and bark at the wind. I was on the phone, so I couldn't have that. My wife works long hours, and my kids were at school. I randomly heard my front door open, which was really weird because I kept it locked. I figured maybe my wife left it unlocked and maybe the wind blew it open. My dogs wouldn't even run off, so I figured I'd wrap up what I was doing, then go close it ASAP. Then I heard my back door open and close. I was like, what the f-? I walked out of my office and closed and locked my front door and saw my back door was unlocked. I was like, dude, what the I locked my back door and then I went and checked my cameras. I have no utilities or anything in my backyard. I don't even have power lines or sewage under my backyard. There's no reason any kind of worker needs to be there. So I'm looking at my cameras and some guy just walked up to my front door, opened it, and walked in. I looked at my inside cameras. He didn't take anything. He didn't even look around. My dogs, which are big, just looked at him. Who the is this guy? Good to know they didn't fulfill their purpose of even alerting me to danger. He went straight to my back door and walked out, looked at my backyard cameras, and he walked all the way to the fence and climbed over it. I've never seen this man. He wasn't my neighbor. I had been in the house for about 6 months and there weren't houses behind me at that time anyway. My wife did leave our door unlocked. It was literally the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. And it was terrifying because what if he didn't want to just walk through my house? What if my wife and kids were home? We changed our locks and called the cops. They said they'd keep an eye out for him. It's been 4 years and nobody in our neighborhood has experienced anything like this. I was fighting some kind of influenza or a really hefty bug. High fever for a few days. After that, the symptoms came and all airways in my skull closed up. My asthma flared up. Every bit of mucous membrane was swollen, and there was so much snot. I was close to a panic attack, but once I called for help in a situation like this, and the emergency doctor just dismissed my shortness of breath as imagination. So this time, I didn't call for help. I tried to sleep, as I was extremely exhausted from the illness, and then it happened. Because of gravity and lying down, my airways closed completely while I was asleep. I woke up choking, gasping for air, but nothing came through the snot and mucus. It took so long and so many desperate tries to get air into my lungs. This was so terrifying. I refused to fall asleep for the next 3 days. Only napped a few minutes while sitting, so gravity wouldn't close my airways again, but still woke up choking a few times. When I first moved into my new house, everyone told me that my neighborhood used to be super sketchy. It all seemed on the up and up to me. Now, we had limited parking outside our house, but I could park my car at the park close by as long as I moved my car overnight. It was about 1 a.m., and I forgot to move my car, so I went outside quickly to move. I thought to myself, I'll be quick, I don't need my phone. As I'm walking toward my car, a creepy-ass white work van rumbles down my street. I wasn't too worried, but they definitely saw me. Then they turned around and parked right outside my house, and stayed in the van with it running. I panicked and tried to get back in my house without them seeing me. I thought I was getting kidnapped. I sprinted once I thought they couldn't catch me. I got in safe, but definitely freaked out. As it turns out, the next door neighbor was starting a carpet cleaning business and had just gotten back in town with his new work van that he bought. He was cleaning the inside of it out while it was still running. This happened to me when I was 12 or 13 years old. My aunt had come into town and stopped by to say hi. While we were visiting, she decides to tell me a scary story about La Llorona. Growing up in a Hispanic household, this story terrified me anyways. She tells me the story, scares the shit out of me, and leaves to go meet up with my mom. A few hours later, I wake up in the middle of the night, and every hair on my body is standing up. You know that feeling where every fiber of your being is telling you to leave? I had that feeling. I told myself I was just scared from the story and to ignore it. So I'm laying down, still scared shitless, when I suddenly hear a knock on my bedroom window. Now me, being a stupid kid, thinking I can handle myself, I grab my BB gun and open the curtains to my window. It was my brother. His phone died and he forgot his house key when he left. One of the worst experiences of my life, LOL. I live in Fort Myers, Florida, which was directly hit by Hurricane Ian. I was out of power for around 35 days, and for many months after power was restored, there were no streetlights where I live, and after the sun went down, it got dark. There's a large swath of land about the size of a football field behind my place, and I often threw a ball using a chuck-it stick for my dog. His favorite ball was glow-in-the-dark variety, so I started taking her out after it got dark and let her chase the glowing balls. One night, I sensed something flying around me. It was pitch dark, so there was nothing to see, but I could feel it. I could feel its presence. I cut the session short. The same thing happened the next night. It freaked me out, and I came inside. It was a day or two later when I figured out that what was happening was there were bats that were attracted to the sound of the ball flying through the air and were flying around me. It didn't really matter that I figured it out, though. It was still too freaky for me to throw the ball for her at night until we had a street light again. Was working home late one night from the station after work. Walk was about 5 to 10 minutes. As I turned down the street, last 300 meters to home, I noticed the lights in the lane were off for some reason. All street lights were off, and it was 12 a.m., so it was pitch dark. Now I, 25 male, was all alone on that street until I reached my building and saw this old lady sitting right in the middle of the road. She was homeless and seemed to be mentally handicapped. She saw me and started walking toward me. I ran inside my building and closed the grill of the entrance, and she walked closer and said, "It was you, wasn't it? I know you, it was you." All I could muster the courage to say is, "Sorry, I'm not carrying any change," and ran up to my apartment. I do not know what she wanted or should have waited, but I have seen enough scary movies to not let curiosity get the better of me. Never saw her again, and I started leaving work sooner. Female 37. I was on a work trip in London that got extended unexpectedly, and I'd had a mix-up with a hotel booking at one of the places I'd usually stay, and had to find an alternative on short notice. It was already 7 p.m., so I found a boutique place nearby that had good reviews on Booking.com. Upon arriving, it became clear that it was very small, the kind of place with maybe 4 to 6 rooms, and it was just a young man in the reception who checked me in, not the owner, just the staff. While doing so, I noticed him paying attention to my engagement ring, and just in general seemed to analyze me. After he's done checking me in, it got weird fast. He asked me to just stay in the reception while he'd go and check my room. I'm immediately alert and ask what he meant by that. Red flags everywhere. And he says something like, "I just want to check that everything is okay with your room," or something generic. I kept asking him what he meant and just insisted on coming with him, directly saying I was tired. All my alarm bells were going off at this point. He could be tampering with the lock or all kinds of things for all I know. So I follow the guy to the room. He opens it, goes in, and of course, everything is fine with the room. So he gives me the key and leaves. The vibes are so eerie at this point that I just sit down and immediately book another hotel. It must have been 5 minutes or so before I got up, grabbed the room key and my bag, head to the door to leave. As I open it, he's still standing on the other side. Thank God I had already thought of a story, so I immediately just say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry for the confusion, but my colleague who I'm traveling with, he is waiting for me right outside." And it turns out I have another reservation somewhere else with the group. As I ran past him, I like to think that all of my true crime-induced anxiety really paid off that night. This is gonna sound so stupid, but when I was little, younger, 12-ish, I was home alone once, and before that, my mom told me to not open the door for anyone. She made it very clear that her and my dad both have a key, and we're not expecting anyone, so there's no reason I should open the door. So, I am cooking, actually warming up some junk food in the microwave, as I wasn't that age where I was allowed to turn the stove on when I was home alone. So I would stop the microwave after every 20 seconds to stir the food and add some cheese. I was basically pretending to cook without actually touching the stove. I was very immersed in the process when I hear the doorbell ringing. Immediately my pulse rises and I just froze up a little bit. I live in an apartment complex, so someone can ring the doorbell from in front of the entrance to the house and from in front of the apartment door. I figured the first scenario was the case since often other kids would ring random bells to just be let in. A few minutes pass and I had finished preparing microwaved meal and calmed down a bit, and suddenly I hear the doorbell again. Then I hear an actual knock on the door, and then I realize someone was just standing in front of my door for like 5 minutes. I'm absolutely petrified, and my heart is beating so loudly, and it gets hard to breathe. Slowly, and as quietly as possible, I make it to the front door with my phone in hand, ready to dial the police to look through the peephole. There were 2 people standing in front of the door, and none of them were my neighbors. It was 2 very non-threatening looking women, so I didn't call anyone, decided to just wait a bit, and if they didn't leave soon, I would call the police or my mom. I go back to eating to calm down, with my phone unlocked and in my hand, ready for whatever happens. I finish eating and nothing happens. Then I check the peephole, and they are gone, but they slid a pamphlet under my door. I read it just to realize that I just got extremely scared of some very persistent Jehovah's Witnesses. On a later Saturday evening, I just came out of the shower and heard the doorbell. Since I wasn't dressed yet, and not expecting anyone anyways, I didn't answer. But the ringing didn't stop, and soon whoever was down there just let his fingers sit on the doorbell. Annoyed, I assumed the speakerphone to at least hear who was there and was greeted with, "Open the damn door." A young male, another male laughing in the background. I knew they wouldn't be able to come up to my apartment as long as I didn't open the door, but I still started shaking. So I asked them who they were and what they wanted. And after some back and forth, finally the dude was like, "Come on, are you serious right now? Let us in, Marissa." Could have been a different female name. I can't remember exactly, but it definitely wasn't my name and not the name of a person I knew. Getting more and more anxious, I was like, "I know no Marissa. She doesn't live here, so who are you? What do you want?" Now that they started to get annoyed, like I was lying to them, I just asked them to come over. I kept denying them until one of the 2 asked, "Wait, isn't that the house number 5? No, it's number 3. Turns out they wanted to visit their female friend that lived next door, which last name sounded very similar to mine, and they didn't bother to thoroughly check before ringing my doorbell and accusing me of lying. When they realized I only got a "Oh, LOL, sorry," and I could hear them burst out laughing in front of the door as they went to the next house. I didn't think it was funny. It was scary, having these 2 men in front of my home, basically banging on my door, demanding I let them in, and getting increasingly more agitated. While I was a woman home alone, it took me for a while to stop shaking. I used to work swing shift, so I'd get home around midnight and stay up until around 3 or 4, and I live alone. Just for some background. Last winter I was in my living room around 2 a.m. and after watching TV, and I heard an extremely loud and violent pounding on my back door. It wasn't constant, but it would happen at random intervals. My backyard is fenced off and super overgrown, so there was absolutely no reason for someone to be back there. I was petrified and afar, turning off my TV and sitting in terror for what felt like hours. I tried to carefully look through my kitchen and laundry room at my back door, but I couldn't see anyone on my back porch. My back porch light is solar charged and turns on and stays on as long as it's dark. I eventually had to slowly creep toward the door and look through the window, but there was no one on my porch or in my backyard. I turned my heater off just in case. It was breaking down and making the noise since it's next to my back door. The noise stopped after that, and I haven't had to use my heater much since, so I'm still not sure what the noise was from. I really hope it was the heater.